Happy February 20th. JLD here, and welcome to Strategy Today. In today's show, we talk about that word, strategy, what it means, why it's so powerful. We also talk about Bitcoin versus real estate, the pros and the cons. We talk about why MSTR dropped at the end of the day yesterday, some really interesting things to go over there. We also talk about how the dilution of MSTR is actually expansion. We dive into those details. I have two great video clips. One's the truth about money, and then Ben Workman goes into the optionality of strategy of MSTR into the future, what that means, why it's so gosh darn bullish. So let's dive on in. All right, today's first post is from Michael Saylor himself, and he just wants to remind us that Bitcoin is strategy. Period. End of story. The next post is from Michael Saylor as well. 1 basis point of Bitcoin. And he's referencing this post from Simon about how Metaplanet has acquired 68 Bitcoin for 6.6 million at 96,000 per Bitcoin. It has achieved a Bitcoin yield of 18% yield to date of 2025. And as of 2/20/2025, we hold 2,100 Bitcoin acquired for 169 million at $80,905 per Bitcoin. Metaplanet is just killing it. And I love how Michael Saylor is just being cheerleaders for other companies like Metaplanets that are going the Bitcoin standard route, that are following the strategy playbook. Let's go, Metaplanets. And then Strategy, a great post from them saying the word strategy comes from the Greek word strategia, meaning generalship. It was primarily used in military context before being adopted for politics, business, and sports. We are privileged to be strategy, one of the most powerful words in the world. Our new name is 2 weeks old, 2.5 times simpler to write and say, and over 100 times easier to remember, and infinitely more valuable. Break that down. Chris shares, if anyone ever asks you why Bitcoin is better than real estate, show them this. Bitcoin doesn't require significant capital. Real estate does require significant capital. Bitcoin can be divided. Real estate can't be divided. Bitcoin value isn't tied to its physical location. Real estate value is tied to its physical location. Bitcoin, high liquidity and can be sold instantly. Real estate, low liquidity and can't be sold instantly. Bitcoin, zero maintenance costs. Real estate, high maintenance costs. Bitcoin, effortless to transport. Real estate, impossible to transport. Bitcoin, theoretically finite supply. Real estate, theoretically infinite supply. Bitcoin, hard for authorities to seize. Real estate, easy for authorities to seize. Bitcoin can transcend tax jurisdictions. Real estate can't transcend tax jurisdictions. And man, I love this post because I can tell you that right now I have what I will say is the last investment property that I ever will own. It was a good time. It was fun. It was 5 years of good times and some not so good times. And I officially have an accepted offer on the property. It's closing in the end of April. So I'm looking forward to transferring that capital into Bitcoin, into MSTR, because I've seen the lights and I'm excited. And I love real estate. I love going to travel and I love Airbnb places and doing a lot of great things. But besides my personal home, I may never and probably will never own another piece of real estate again. That's a personal choice. Let's go into Chris's next post. That is, Bitcoin is the risk off hurdle rates, while MSTR is the risk on hurdle rates. Now, a lot of people are like, well, wait a second, what does this mean? Well, listen, Bitcoin, if you believe in the thesis, it is going up forever. So that is risk off. If you really believe in the thesis that is going up forever, that's risk off. Now, MSTR is risk on because you're going to outperform Bitcoin in the good times, but you're going to underperform in the bad times. And of course, there are other factors that can factor in on MSTR that will not on Bitcoin. So I love this post by Chris. Something to think about. Now, this is from Bitcoin Overflow because a lot of people yesterday were very frustrated because Bitcoin was up like 1 or 2% and MSTR was down like over 4%. And that really happened mostly towards the end of the day. It seemed to kind of really just dump down at the end. And Bitcoin Overflow explains this by sharing. So I was planning to post before MSTR announced the new convertible bonds today that if and when it announced a new CB, the setup reminds me a lot of September 17th. CB arb traders placing their initial shorts into similar levels of complacency could create a buying opportunity, no guarantees. And this is the September 17th announcement of the convertible bond that happened back then. The shorts were placed. The pressure went down on MSTR, pushing it down. And then once that settled out, what happened? I was on this ride, and let me tell you, it was a fun ride to be and I look forward to being on the next one of these rides coming up in the future, which I am looking forward to and very excited about. And Matt also just wanted to share that 50,000 MSTR calls were purchased in the last 20 minutes of trading today. These are these yellow bars over here, pushing the 30-day implied volatility back over 70. So the implied volatility has been under 70 for a very long time now. And if you've been following this channel, if you've been following Michael Saylor and Strategy and other people that talk about strategy, volatility is vitality. Volatility is a feature, not a bug. Michael Saylor and the strategy team have created MSTR to be volatile, intentionally, and intelligently volatile. And it hasn't been that way for a long time now. But now that these convertible bonds are coming back, and Ben Workman actually announced in a video yesterday that he thinks every couple of weeks we're going to be seeing another convertible bond coming out. We'll see what actually happens. But that is his thesis right now, which I would love personally, that the volatility is going to be back up, the IV is going to be back up. And if Bitcoin moves up, watch out to the upside. If Bitcoin keeps chopping, then MSTR is going to keep chopping. And if Bitcoin goes down, well, we know what happens there as well. So time will tell. This last post I want to share today is from Adam Livingston. Dilution is the engine of expansion. A lot of people are panicking about dilution after Strategy MSTR's recent $2 billion convertible senior notes offering, throwing around words like shareholder dilution as if it's some catastrophic event. But here's the reality. Those who fear dilution in this context simply do not understand the mechanics of the strategy trade, nor do they grasp the fundamental nature of Bitcoin accumulation at scale. Dilution is not the destruction of value. It is the expansion of ownership over an appreciating asset. It is a financial mechanism that, when applied correctly, creates more value per share, not less. Here's why. The core thesis of Strategy is that Bitcoin is the hardest asset ever created, and its long-term price trajectory is up, driven by absolute scarcity and increasing global adoption. The company's entire playbook revolves around raising cheap capital in the debt and equity markets and converting that capital into Bitcoin, front-running the inevitable repricing of the global financial system. The recent $2 billion convertible senior notes offering is a masterstroke in this strategy. Why? Because Strategy is borrowing at near zero interest rates. And in fact, this one's going to be at zero, taking dollars that are depreciating in value and exchanging them for the scarcest, hardest money ever created. As Bitcoin appreciates, so does Strategy's balance sheets. And more importantly, so does its Bitcoin per share. We have talked about this a lot, my friends, and this is just what you are signing up for when you sign up for MSTR and being a shareholder. Adam goes and talks about some more really good stuff here. I will end by saying the holders of these notes will likely convert them into equity as MSTR stock price rises, meaning the debt disappears into ownership, reducing any actual repayment burden. This is what makes the move so brilliant. It allows Saylor to continuously increase its Bitcoin holdings without taking on toxic debt. If you want to read this whole post, I'm going to post it in the show notes below, but I wanted to give you the beginning half and then the very end part, because to me, those are the critical parts. But here's just Saylor playing chess while TradFi is just sitting there playing checkers. It's just happening. Now I want to let you guys dive into the next two video clips that I have for you. One is about the truth about money. And the other one is Ben Workman talking about MSTR's optionality. So gentlemen, take it away.
I don't think they already think about themselves as a Bitcoin bank, right? They view themselves essentially as securitizing Bitcoin. So they're essentially a Bitcoin investment bank at the moment. And so when they say that, you don't ever really know exactly what they mean, right? Do they mean the type of bank people traditionally think about, or do they think about investment bank where they're going to take all this Bitcoin that they have and they're going to create securitized products around it and bring those to the market as an investment bank? Don't really know. The other thing that I tend to look at, and I think a lot of people miss this in this entire strategy, is essentially, when a company undertakes an LBE strategy, you can think of it as being in a perpetual capital raise, right? You're raising capital all the time. You're using this arbitrage to build this capital reserve war chest for your company. And people are really overlooking what the benefits of that are. So I made a post a while ago pertaining to MicroStrategy, and I said, what if they get 800,000 Bitcoin and Bitcoin's only at 300,000, right? What is the value of optionality for a company? That's something that I think about quite a bit, because if you look at all of the S&P 500, for instance, if in that scenario, if MicroStrategy ended up with that much Bitcoin and they fully delevered themselves and you have $240 billion of fully unencumbered capital, and then you ask the question, well, what can you become with that? And the answer is anything you want. And it doesn't mean you even have to sell that Bitcoin. Because if we think this is going to progress even remotely the way we're seeing, with access to actual collateralized lending against this, right? It's basically just asset-based lending. This isn't complex. So it's going to come, and it's way better than most asset-based lending because it's a highly liquid global market, right? I mean, it's perfect. And so if you look down the road 5 years and go, with $240 billion, what can you be? The answer is anything you want. So people are overlooking that component. And we tend to start to think about transformations in a vacuum, like they're projects you do and then you're done. But in the corporate world, with technology advancing, that's not the case. I mean, you've got to be in a perpetual state of transformation. So when you're on that path and a company goes into an LBE strategy, it might be that they view that as one evolution of that transformation. And they may see that they've got a real opportunity to go offer the market something it doesn't have, right? This volatility that MicroStrategy proved out. So as they're transforming or even just buying time to figure out what they're going to be when they grow up, you can't ignore the optionality that comes with this, right? I tend to think that you're going to hit a point in this strategy where they're going to end up with so much capital here that the big win could actually be when they're done with this phase of the strategy.
Yeah.
And they say, whatever that next thing is, I don't know what the thing is going to be in 10 years. I have no idea what the hot business that the market's going to really value is going to be in 10 years. But I do know that the company that has all the capital is going to be the one that's going to be able to take advantage of it. And so I want to own the companies with all the capital when it comes time to shift to the next phase of the strategy. I'm not saying that MicroStrategy is going to abandon Bitcoin. It may just be that the ecosystem around Bitcoin advances so much that they just become the most integral part of it because of their holdings to be able to facilitate all these different transactions. And that's how they monetize. That's a very real possibility. And then you got to think in terms of 10 years, what does this look like? What position are they in? And, you know, if Bitcoin's at $2 million a coin in 10 years, well, you got what, $1.6 trillion, right?
Yeah.
So what can they do, right? They can do 20 things then.
100.
So that's the way I tend to look at it. Think that we get very tunnel visioned and we tend to block out other conversations. But I think you have to entertain those conversations if you're going to really explore what it is you're buying, if you plan to hold it for the long term. If you're not just trading it, then you've got to think longer term and you've got to think, what does this enable 5-10 years down the road? And that's where I spend most of my time because I think this is a long-term investment for me, not a trade.
And there you have it, another episode of Strategy Today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you do, please remember it's not financial advice, but I would love a comment from you, where you're watching from, what you liked about the show, what you think could be improved. I love all your comments. Your likes and your shares are very meaningful as well. And thank you for subscribing. What about my MSTR purchase? Well, yesterday I bought at $334. I timed the top yesterday, so go JLD. Loved it. I bought $210 worth and acquired a 0.63 share of MSTR. And that was yesterday, February 19th, as I go ahead and buy $210 every single day, or at least trading day of 2025. And my DCA portfolio will be revealed every single Saturday as well, how I'm doing. Last report, I think I was down 5%. So we'll see what's going to be happening this coming Saturday. And until next time, my friends, remember that you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So curate those people wisely. There's a lot of bears out there. There's a lot of people that are spreading fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Block those people out. I literally follow 20 people on X because those people are people who I actually know, like, and trust, who I respect their opinions. And I just block out all the other noise because to me, I know where MSTR is going long term. I believe I know where it's going. I have a belief in that. And so I don't need all the FUD in between there. And I recommend if anybody's having some struggles with anything when it comes to that, just curate the people you're spending the most time with. And I'm honored that I'm one of those people, at least for these 15 minutes of your day, because as Michael Saylor says, there is no second best.
What's the second best? There is no second best.